All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Houston Ensemble podcast. Today is an extremely important episode. It's one of our favorite people that we've already had and that we're bringing back on. We've got the wonderful Dolly Vyas Ahuja with us today. So, Dolly, thank you so much for coming. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
We've got a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about veganism. We're going to talk about Dolly's documentary that she's currently working on. We're going to talk about current global affairs as well. But for those of you that are just now joining us, or if you haven't seen our podcast before, I'm going to let Dolly kind of give a little bit of background about herself, and then we'll just get into the stuff. So, Dolly, just tell the people kind of who you are, what you do, and what you care about.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So yeah, my name is Dolly Vyas Ahuja. I'm an Ahimsa animal activist. I'm the voice for the voiceless. I'm also a mom. I love to do cooking shows. I'm a contributor for Jane and Chain News Network. And I love to do cooking shows on our channel. I'm also part of Dr. Shayla Shroud Climate Healers, Vegan World 2026. And so I'm also part of that. We got to go vegan 2026, everybody.
Okay.
And I'm a whole food plant-based, during the weekdays. So, and I'm also a juicer. I love to juice. And I'm making a vegan documentary called The Land of Ahimsa. And for people that don't know, Ahimsa means nonviolence, not just to human beings, but to all sentient beings. It's the most beautiful word ever written because it means nonviolence in everything we think, say, and do. And this word originated in my country in India 5,000 years ago. And so the movie is about just my journey and veganism and talking about the dairy in India. Everyone knows that the cow is considered holy and sacred in India. But it's far from the truth. The smallest villager knows how to inseminate a cow. And all of this Western diet now has come to India. Pizza Huts, KFCs, there's a lot more meat eating going on in India.
It is widely known that the tobacco and diet industries lobby governments with scientific propaganda for years until proven guilty in court. The artificial treatment of our water is the next corporate deception.
For example, virtually every nation in Europe has rejected the use of artificial fluoride. International studies since the 40s have repeatedly shown that endocrine and neurological effects increase after repeated consumption, even at the levels accepted by U.S. government.
Epic Water Filters is the most thorough industry-grade filtration system that Houston Ensemble has ever used. They reduce heavy metals upwards of 99.5%, such as lead and mercury, bacteria like E. coli, and poisons like chromium, nitrate, and fluoride.
Join us in our journey to living a toxin-free life and get your Epic Water Filter using discount code Houston Ensemble lowercase one word. That's Houston Ensemble lowercase one word for 20% off your Epic Water Filter.
So, are we the land of Ahimsa? This is what we're going to discuss. And we get to interview plant-based doctors and vegan athletes and entrepreneurs. And it's just going to be like a holistic film, Mm-hmm. India being the diabetes capital of the world,
Really?
Even though we're mainly vegetarian. And this is from all the dairy, the saturated fat in the dairy.
Oh, wow.
So, we're working on editing it and trying to getting it out, this year, hopefully.
And like I said earlier, if you are new here, in the first ever podcast that we did with Dolly quite a few months ago, we actually show clips from the documentary. So you can go check that out. Hopefully we'll be able to put the link to that original podcast in the description of this one so that you can go and see the links. And I thought that it was really definitely interesting. There's so much stuff that needs to be talked about. And I think a lot of people, just to kind of talk about veganism for a second, I think a lot of people get veganism confused. They maybe don't have the right grasp on it or something like that. Obviously, killing animals has been a part of human culture for a long time, but they don't realize that the dairy industry or the cheese industry or, this type of stuff is actually just as bad, if not worse, potentially, because
Right.
it's really just prolonged torture where you have cows, sheep, goats, whatever, on rape racks where they have to be constantly inseminated because the only way that they produce milk is through being pregnant.
Right.
And so they're literally being raped,
Right.
unfortunately known as a rape rack, to be able to keep producing milk. And then they're standing there for hours and hours and hours, not allowed to go anywhere, bleeding, udders bleeding. It's a horrible image. I'm sorry to get so visceral
Yes.
about it, but you have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
fact that we're doing that on a massive scale is so weird to me.
Yeah.
The fact that we even have factories that are quote unquote kosher factories. Even you have different levels of factories. You've got your regular slaughterhouse, which is really just run them through, kill them, get them done, hurts, crazy.
Right.
Then you have like your kosher slaughterhouse where they have a machine that has to abide by some arbitrary kosher laws of slaughter where, for example, they'll put the cow in a metal jacket, bend back the neck, let the person slice it, bleed it out. It's really
Yeah.
weird. And I
Yeah.
don't think people know that enough. So one thing that we like to talk about is, peace among people, peace among animals. And like Dr. Will Tuttle said,
Yes.
the way that we treat animals is the way that we'll eventually treat humans and the way that we already are treating humans. And we can
Correct.
see that today.
Yeah.
So I know we've had some other people from India talk about just that it's really not as clear cut or as peaceful as they might think.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, cows were treated like family members. They would be in the backyard. She could be there for the rest of her life with her baby. But now we're living in a different time. It's become very commercial. And now cheese is very popular in India too. You can get cheese samosa, cheese dosa. There's cheese in everything. And we have to get her pregnant. The baby cannot have any milk of the mother because the demand is so high. So it's just very, very cruel. India is one of the largest leather producers in this world and beef exports because predominantly India doesn't eat beef. So it's very, very sad. And I talk about why dairy is not ahimsa around the world, which is so dear to my heart. I try to talk at temples because in the temple, we would never serve beef or any kind of meat at a temple anywhere around the world in an Indian temple. Then how could we be putting raped milk from a cow, a mother cow that we love and that we pray to, and we consider her as Gau Mata, our mother? How could we be doing this? And I think it's just education. People just don't know, I didn't know before either. Once people know, I think the Jain community is willing to change when they find this out because
Right.
they truly believe in ahimsa. They don't even want to kill an ant on the floor. So in April 2022, I'm going to be speaking at the Himalaya, the first Himalayan Veg Fest. And Keegan Kuhn will be there, Dr. Shailesh Rao, Renee from Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Going to be amazing speakers. So I'm really excited about it. I want to bring this education to the temples that we need to take the pledge. If we want to be a pure ahimsa temple, we've got to get rid of the dairy. Also at the temples, we pour milk on our deities as a sign of respect. Now imagine how many temples there are in India and in the United States and around the world. Gallons and gallons of milk on the deities that we love. So what I'm saying is, why don't we put coconut milk or coconut water or simply water? We don't need to be using this cruelty and abuse, and we're such hypocrites if we do such a thing.
Yeah.
And the canteens in these temples need to be vegan. And also the sweets that we eat have a lot of ghee and dairy products in them. But it's so easy in today's time. We can just use coconut oil or cashew milk or almond milk. It's so easy.
One thing that I see a lot of in our current culture is this, on the surface, it's very good, but this drive to bring up people, do no harm to people, put other people ahead because they have been in the back, which I think are actually noble ideas right at the start. But I don't understand why, if we are a culture that is so quick to call out humans and, you know, punish humans as well for their offenses or whatever they are, that they wouldn't also feel the same way about other sentient beings.
Yeah.
You know, like even a pig is going to beat a toddler at a cognition test.
Yes.
Or a dog.
Yes.
And so to really be over there preaching some sort of philosophy and then still have no care about animals or anything like that. But one thing that I want to say is Armin grew up on a farm for a little while.
Okay.
And there's definitely a difference between, you know, the factory farm Western lifestyle versus the very naturalistic from the land lifestyle. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I can start on the extreme end, which is if you think about where it's gone to, the most extreme end of, I would say, animal cruelty, in my opinion, in that culture right now would be veal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Now, I don't know
if you're not, just sorry to interrupt you, tell people how it's done if you weren't going to do that.
Tell people how I would do it.
Or how veal is procured.
Well, I mean, to put simply, there's a variety of like subtle ways that go about it, but you take the calf from the mother ASAP, you put it in a box so it doesn't grow too much, you underfeed it.
Yeah.
And there's some people that would go so far as to, I don't even want to mention, but to, in some cultures, we don't do this, but you know, they'll let the animal bleed in a variety of ways to get the chemicals
also
going.
Complete darkness for so there's no iron production,
right?
Which
to get it
why,
soft,
to get it as soft as possible, which is then why the baby cows start to, in like more factory farming areas, start to try and eat the metal because they're so iron deficient, which is
oh gosh.
Yeah, it's horrible to talk about, but you have to know what's going on.
Yeah, the truth has to.
Yeah, we have to understand the truth so that we can differentiate when something is good or bad. You know, we're the one species on the planet that's able to cognitively justify insane acts because we have a drive to sustain ourselves and our self-image and our desire to do certain things. But other animals, I feel like, just face things as they are, and we could really learn from being able to do that. But yeah, the veal thing, I mean, the veal thing was not a popular thing when I was growing up now, but with the growing population in that part of the world now, there's a higher demand and people are going there for veal now more than ever. But on the very simple end, it was just, you have a cow, you have natural insemination with bulls. It's all open. It's all free range. There's, you know, an insane amount of land for these animals. Okay. And we know what cows predominantly do. They graze.
Yeah.
And so that's what you let the cows do. And years and years go by where the cow is having calves that are also growing in their own. And we're milking them during those seasons, during those periods.
Yeah.
And when the cow isn't pregnant, then we're not milking the cow.
Right.
And I remember, if you want a picture of it, I remember milking the cow. We had like a little milk barn, and we'd take her. We'd be like, okay, her name was Khatunik, one of the cows that I remember, Khatunik. We take Khatunik to the barn after she was done grazing. Like, she would know already what time it is, and she's like, she didn't love it.
Yeah.
But we would bring her water and her pot of grass so that she could have something to do there. And then guess what? She would be hitting you kind of like sarcastically, because this cow was smart, okay?
Yeah.
And they have very complex emotions. So,
Yes.
so she would smack you across the face with her tail anytime you kind of you did something a little wrong. She would smack you a little bit.
I mean, as a woman, I must say, as a woman, when you are feeding your child, you don't want anybody here except your baby.
Right.
Mother cow does not want anyone touching her udders.
Yeah.
It's a violation. Than her baby. And in India, you know, they tie the back legs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
They tie the tail many times because a mother cow will kick.
Yeah.
She will kick. She will use her head. And so we have to tie her. You know, they don't give milk. We're stealing their milk.
Right.
They don't give it willingly.
Right.
We're stealing it. And, you know, growing up, we all think cows make milk. But no, they're giving milk because they're mothers. They just had a baby.
Right.
It's breast milk.
Right.
You know, just like any mammal or
Right.
a human.
Yeah. But you understand how over hundreds of years of doing this,
Yeah.
it becomes a thing that the farmers do. And this cow also got used to that being a part of her life. Now, obviously, yeah, we were still stealing her milk.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes without saying. But on the other hand, just to compare it to what it's now,
Yeah.
I mean, now it's a Holocaust.
Machine,
now
yeah.
it's a genocide.
Yes, it is. The drugs.
You know?
Yeah.
It's really
I
beyond
mean, they're
that.
on machines. They get mastitis. They get infection. The baby's not even has a drop of her mother's milk.
Yeah, and you know, the reason when it gets to that level, the quality also goes down, and that's why we find so much sickness coming from meat, coming from dairy, coming from, you know, the allowance of pus in the milk
Right.
or the cheese or whatever.
Right.
And when I worked at a sushi restaurant when I was in high school, and we had chicken as part of the sushi. And I remember getting these bags of chicken, these really big bags of plastic bags of chicken. And we would pull them out and they were like huge chicken breasts, which was also odd, along with our huge carrots and huge cucumbers, like
GMO.
like just really odd.
Yeah.
Anyway, there would be all this green pus on the chicken, like embedded in the fat, and we would have to take the knife and cut off all the green pus. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow. So this is a quote unquote slightly higher level restaurant. You know, it was considered healthy, considered nice. It was in a nicer part of town. I was like,
Right.
yet these people do not know that I am cutting green slime
That's right.
off of their chicken back here.
That's right. And think about when did that chicken get murdered?
Right.
Okay. When an animal dies or a human dies and you kill them, they start to rot. They start to rot. So they need to put so many chemicals. Now the truck driver brought it to that restaurant, that grocery store, maybe a month or 2 months later. Imagine, like you say, the pus, the infection, and they put so many chemicals in there, and it makes the meat look fresh. You know, and we're taking all these toxins in our body, not to mention that energy. When the animal, energy never
Yes.
dies, it only gets transferred.
Yep.
So when we're eating the animal, we're taking on the suffering, the anxiety, the pain, the fear.
Totally. I think we even talked about that in the last one. I think that's one of the biggest reasons, especially for me, that I'm vegan, is because when you think of it like that, you realize that there's so much pain, suffering, all this stuff. Even when you see the freaking trailer on the highway with all the animals in it,
Yeah.
or when they're at a stop, you know, at the gas station or something like that, you're like, this is sick.
Yeah.
And that goes into the meat, which then you consume, which is maybe why we see so much violence or so much depression,
Insomnia. People can't sleep.
all these
Overthinking.
things.
Yes.
And that's why actually I want to start getting a little more into, obviously we're griping so much about the horrible problems, but I think a lot of people who are not vegan would say, okay, I hear all this, but can you get everything you need? And absolutely you can. We're about to go into that because, for example, when they take chicken and they put it under the UV light in the factory to kill the germs that are on it, they are also destroying B12 that's within the chicken. And one of the, you know, a lot of people are like, well, where are you going to get your vitamins from? Especially where are you going to get your B12? And I'm like, bro, you're not getting really any vitamins from that chicken. You're just getting crap out of it. And so,
well, B12 doesn't come from plants or animals. It's a bacteria that, you know, was naturally in our streams in our land. And we don't have that anymore. So
because one reason is because we're so dedicated to cleaning off everything. A lot of original people, early humans, got their B12 from the microorganisms that were in the dirt on the food, or just from simply not washing our hands. And that's a whole nother topic of your natural immune system working out. And when you are a person who's using hand sanitizer 24/7, you're never getting dirty at all. You're staying inside. You're not getting any sunlight. By the way, I just learned yesterday that 90% of your vitamin D intake comes from your sun absorption.
That's right.
Not your food.
That's right.
And another thing is that they're finding that supplements really work when you're deficient. If you're not deficient, they're really going to come out of you. So it's like, if you're good and everything's going fine. If you're sick and you're depleting your system, that's a time when you would take it. And then also something like vitamin D works differently for different people. There's not actually a one size fits all for vitamins. Namely, people who have less melanin in their skin produce vitamin D at a faster level. However, obviously they're more likely to burn. And so somebody who has more melanin in their skin and they're put in a tropical sun, well, they're not going to burn at all, or they're going to be less likely to burn, but they will take longer to develop their vitamin D. And back, you know, when in the hunter-gatherer society, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, which means that in the time of plenty, in the time of harvest, they'd be eating a lot, they'd have more fat on their body, they're out in the sun, their vitamin D is storing up, and then so that when they get into the winter, they release the vitamin D into their body when it's not happening as much. And that brings me to our government institutions. Do not have the best interest of the public health in mind. If they did, they would be advocating for being in the sun. They'd be advocating for the least inflammatory diet possible, which is a whole food plant-based diet. They'd be advocating for vitamin supplementation if you do not know your levels or that you think you're deficient. And by the way, most of the United States population is actually deficient in vitamin D.
Yes, they are.
And you think if you eat meat, you're going to be fine. You fish? No. It's the majority of us are low in vitamin D. And so that's why it's a good thing to get.
And they did a study, Chad, actually, that, you know, most people that died of this current pathogen were lacking vitamin D. Because in today's society, we drive to work, we go to work, we drive to the grocery store, we go inside, we drive home, we watch TV, we go to bed.
We watch Netflix and go to bed.
And nobody is getting, you know, beautiful sunshine.
No.
And that's what we need.
And I totally agree. You know, I would trust the government institutions, just the overall institutions, more if they made a salient effort to recommend things that were actually good for the human body. You know, I had to do a live video on our channel last night going through all of the absolutely ridiculous headlines that have come out regarding the incentive to get this current inoculation, because it's completely anathema to our existence. It's completely against our health. So some of these things include, this is just silly, but I just think it's stupid, getting a lap dance. You go to the strip club, you get your shot, and you get a lap dance. Okay, number 2, you get free Krispy Kreme for a year. Okay, that'll lead you to a heart attack.
That's really healthy. Heart attack.
We have Mayor of New York, Mike de Blasio, looking like a buffoon, eating Shake Shack and fries. And he's like, oh, is it too early? It's 10:30 a.m. He's like, is it really too early to be eating a hamburger?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and by the way, that doesn't incentivize us, because I'm not going to eat Shake Shack. So how about if you really want to incentivize us, you do something that literally everybody can have. How about you say, I'm going to give you a multivitamin, a Garden of Life, multivitamin year-long subscription if you get it. And then I would be like, no, I'll get it on my own, but thank you.
Right.
I'll get the vitamin
I mean,
on my
if they
own.
really cared about our health, heart disease is the number one killer around the world.
Totally.
How come they don't mandate plant-based diets? How come they don't mandate exercise, fresh air, sunshine, meditation?
Right. And actually they're trying to, and I'm sorry, this is touchy. We don't want to hurt anybody at all, but they're trying to normalize being unhealthy, being obese.
There's an interesting topic. Sometimes Chad and I discuss this, and I want to address this word because I think it kind of paints a picture of everything that we're seeing and kind of how, in general, propaganda is created. And I want to just preface this by saying, and this is not me being on a high horse, because there's probably a couple of billion people that are on the same page with me at this point. But when you see aggressive, propagandized, or politicized rhetoric, and it's becoming more and more extreme in the public, what often you see happening is a phenomenon called casuistry. And I talk about this word because it's a good way to explain what it really is using deception to sound logical. And there's an art to that, and there's varying degrees of that. But if you're able to see that a logical argument, quote unquote, is being made with packaged lies, then it's really easy to detect, what is false, what is fiction, what is nonfiction. But when you're getting to the point where, well, are you obese? That's okay, because that's beautiful, and everything is beautiful, and you'll be okay. Let's not talk about the fact that there's this much grease in your heart waiting to burst.
Yeah.
Because, that's insensitive. And you see how that works? This is deceptive logic. And part of that is using your own emotional triggers against you. So if I say this is wrong. And if I say this is wrong, so I'm being trained like a dog to be in one line of thinking. And it's very calculatively done. And I just want to make it clear that when we talk of these things, it's not like these are abstract ideas. There has been clinical studies and psychiatric studies on how to control populations going back decades.
And just to piggyback off of that, when you are unhealthy as a person, and let's put it in context of our specific problem that we're dealing with in the world right now. If you are obese, being obese is one of the highest risk.
Number one
for having a bad time with it.
Yes.
And then on top of that, if you're obese, technically you're actually putting others at risk because you're more likely to get more sick and be more spreading and blah, 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 blah. But they're not saying anything about that.
Yeah.
They're not saying, hey, jump on the treadmill or whatever. And by the way, when I was, in high school, I weighed just about 200 pounds. Just about. Now I played football. I was intense. I wasn't like necessarily super fat, but at my current height, which is like 5'7", and weighing 200 pounds, having high triglycerides, having high cholesterol, having to go on blood pressure medicine at a point, lisinopril for a point.
Wow.
That's not good. But then I turned it around.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not the case
anymore. Did the
anymore.
doctors ever tell you at that age to exercise and change your lifestyle?
I definitely went to a dietitian, but it wasn't clear. And they were more just like, here's the amount of like meat you should have on your plate, and the amount of starch and the amount of vegetables.
Yeah. And
that's good. And it wasn't really anything to it. And I think one thing that made me lose weight was literally just eating less. Okay, that's a pretty important thing.
Yeah.
But then two, late high school, like junior year, senior year, primarily senior year though, I really started making a switch towards a vegetarian diet because my parents wouldn't really let me be vegan because they didn't know.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, you're not going to get all your nutrients. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And by the way, I had always wanted to be vegetarian all the way. My earliest memory was in 5th grade or 6th grade, just being like, I just want to do this.
Wow.
And I wasn't allowed because of the cultural
Yeah.
programming and all that kind of stuff. But then, you know, once I got into college, I said, I'm vegan now.
Yeah.
Because it's just me. So, you know, all these things play into the current state of health. And I know that, Dolly, you got sick somewhat recently. I got sick. I think we actually both got sick kind of in August.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was, you know, I had a fever and had a wicked headache.
Wow.
And it was like kind of bad for me.
Yeah.
I haven't been sick like that. But I jumped on my vitamins and some Chinese herbs.
Wow.
I did not juice like you. I totally should have.
Okay.
I did drink juice. I went to the store and bought me and Sophie a bunch of juice.
Wow.
Which was expensive.
Yes, it is.
As whatever. But I think that totally helped.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want you to talk about your experience getting the current sickness, what you did to get better, and how you've helped other people.
Yeah. So it was in August, and my son wasn't feeling too well. And taking care of him, you know, I mean, he bounced back like in 2 days. And taking care of him, you know, I didn't feel too well. I got the chills, slight fever, and felt very, very lethargic, like weak, like I'd never felt this weak, you know? So since I'm a juicer anyway, and I make my own fresh juices at home with the juicer. And you know you don't have an appetite really when you're sick. So I just detoxed. I started juicing every 50 minutes. And usually I'll drink green juice at night, Monday through Thursday, but I incorporated carrot, apple, ginger juice with turmeric. This juice cures cancer. There's a place called the Garrison Therapy Clinic in Mexico. They're actually giving this carrot, apple, ginger juice to cancer patients. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let's get up on that. So carrot, apple, and thank God, you know, I do have a lady that comes to my house and helps with the juicing and all that. So I'm like, make that for me. I was drinking green juice, and I also started drinking lemon water with mint and ginger. Now, lemon water has more vitamin C than orange juice, a lot of vitamin C. And I would drink that hot, some with coconut water and then boiling hot water. Drink it hot, so really good.
And it's very alkalinizing.
Alkalizing, yeah. So every 50 minutes, some juice. Immediately, I started doing steam. This is what you don't hear in the media. You don't have, doctors don't tell you. Steam, and the old-fashioned way, not like a fancy steamer. I boiled water in a big pot. You could put one day onion, one day garlic. They're viral, antibacterial. Mm-hmm. And a thick towel. Boil the water, put that in, thick towel, put it over your head, and breathe.
I think Armin told me to do that when I was sick.
Yeah, but do it right away. You got to do it right away.
And I didn't do it.
Breathe through the nose and also breathe through the mouth. Because with this current pathogen is coming in our lungs, and it doesn't like this steam. Can't survive in it. I did that 3 times a day. Old-fashioned, no fancy steamer. Just boil water, thick towel. The other thing I do is sit in the sun. Now, I'm already a sun gazer, sunbather. I just love it. So, and I made sure, it was August, and we were in Texas. It was great. Yeah. I made sure to wear like a bathing suit top and board shorts because you really want to get all your body, especially your abdomen, where most of your immune system lies. Make sure the sun is coming on the abdomen. So for 20 minutes, I'd have a juice and I would just sleep. You could just, because the sun feels so good. And you'll actually feel the sun penetrating through your skin. Like when you feel that, you feel like, and I also talk to the sun. Dear sun, I would say it in my language, make every cell in my body have vitamin D3, vitamin D. Please heal me. And I just believe so much in it. I also, turn on to my back and do 20 minutes that way. Because it was August, we would sweat. And sweat is good because your toxins are coming out. So have to go out. And yes, you can take a vitamin D supplement, which I was doing in my smoothies, but nothing like the sun. Also, do not wear sunblock when you're sunbathing. And do not shower because it actually takes 18 to 20 hours for that vitamin D to absorb in the skin. So if you want to shower, shower in the morning. Because I was sunbathing, maybe twice a day.
Wow.
So front and back. Let me see, the other thing that I did was, I would make smoothies in the morning and I would put zinc in the smoothie, vitamin C. I incorporated vitamin D also, even though I was sitting in the sun, but emulsified, not the tablet. Make sure it's the liquid organic.
And did you bring that?
Yeah.
So you
I
brought
can show everybody.
some stuff.
Yeah. I always use the organic Now brand. And you could just take this tablet out and put it in your smoothie. That way you're not swallowing pills all the time.
And maybe you can just show that one more time for the camera. I think
Yes.
So I was going to zoom in a little bit on that.
Okay. Vitamin C.
We're not endorsed, but just to let you know.
Yeah. I always like to use organic because it could be any organic.
Right.
And then the emulsified D, I would put 2 to 3 drops of this emulsified D organic into my smoothie.
And where did you get that?
This I ordered online.
Okay.
It's actually a vegan, plant-based
Okay.
vitamin D. And then I would put, of course, zinc.
Yeah.
This is a biggie. You got to put zinc in that smoothie. I would put 2 tablets, or if I made more smoothie, I put 3 tablets. And this is also a key thing. Colloid silver. Do you guys know about this?
Yeah.
Colloid silver, great for the immune system. So just spray 15 times a day, 3 times. It's just a miracle.
15 times a day.
No. 15 sprays. I'm
15
sorry.
sprays, 3 times a day.
10 to 15 sprays, 3 times a day.
Cool.
Yeah. And I did that. Rest, lots of rest. Because that's what your body, when you're weak and feeling that fatigued, your body is telling you something. So don't exert yourself. The other thing I did was walk barefoot, which I normally do anyway, but I love to do earthing and walk barefoot. And I would ask Mother Earth, please give me the electric ions in my body and give me equilibrium and heal me. As I felt a little bit better, just in my side yard, walk back and forth. A lot of rest. Trying to think what else I did. Yeah, these are the things that I did. And green juice.
Yeah.
Green juice at night. And I make all my juices organic. And I didn't have any other symptoms. No headache, no running nose. I only had the fever the first day. But it was more lethargy. Just feeling really weak. But bounced back. And then once I got better, my neighbor told me that, and she actually was inoculated twice. And she wasn't feeling well. And
she got sick after that?
Yes, she got it again.
Okay.
And I was like, let me come over. Let me just show you what I would just make her all the juices, lemon water. I told her to sit in the sun. I told her to do the steam. And she got better. And I did it for her husband. Another neighbor of mine, he's actually our president of our homeowners association, 75 years old, double inoculated, started doing it for him. And he got better. And the lady who works at my house, same thing. So I was almost like, it was a calling for me because I started helping her and she got better with all these vitamins, the smoothies, the lemon water, sunshine, steam. There's a doctor friend of mine in Chicago, and I started telling him all this. And he's also a plant-based lifestyle medicine doctor. And he was like, you know what, Dolly, you need to share your story. You really need to get it out there. And he called me one day. He's like, my wife's cousin's sick, and she's very scared. So could you call her? And the other important thing, I didn't panic. I don't watch TV. TV is nothing but fear,
Amen.
So that's the most important thing, is not to panic. Because the minute you get stressed and panic, your immune system's going to go down. I just had this faith in God that my immune system's strong and I'm going to get through it. And that's what I told other people as well. And so he's like, can you talk? And she was very nervous. I'm like, please don't panic. Turn the TV off. Just do these simple things. and she got better, and she referred me to somebody. So, you know, the body is so amazing. And what I learned from Dr. Baxter, our very own from Houston, we're watching his videos, Montgomery Heart and Wellness. He's got excellent educational videos. Whether you're inoculated or not, you have to have a strong immune system. That's the key. The key is to have a strong, strong immune system. So, you know, I chose not to. I don't even get the yearly flu shot. And I just chose not to do it. And now, you know, I have immunity against it for life because natural immunity is so much robust, you know? So I feel like I had chicken pox when I was a kid. And I'm never going to get them again because my body now has immunity for it.
Right. You're not going to get shingles, which can potentially kill people who are later in life, which is really crazy. And, you know, you're exactly right with the robust immunity that you've gotten from just getting the virus by itself. And, you know, my girlfriend works for two families that are both, they both work in MD, they both work in the med center in the, I forget, some pathology departments. And they both said to her, oh, you got it? Okay, that's even better that you got it than getting the other thing.
Right.
And, you know, that's pretty important because she had also not gotten inoculated. And that was kind of a question regarding her nannying job. But they're like, oh, well, you got the sickness. We're totally on board with that. And that's better for you. And
I mean, and it has, sorry to interrupt you, it has a 99.97 recovery rate. So when you know that, and you trust your immune system and you nourish your body and make your body as alkaline as you can, that's the best way to go.
Right. And, you know, a lot of the current American lifestyle is all about acidity and inflammation.
Yes.
And when you have all this inflammation in your body, that's when you start to get sick. And that's when you that's when you start seeing things pop up in your health. And then on top of that, what they're finding is that most people who are actually dying of this right now have, I think, at least 3 or 4 comorbidities already going.
Right.
It's like, well, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember my great grandma, she died of pneumonia. Okay. Makes sense. It's unfortunate, but she died of pneumonia.
Yeah.
My dad died of congestive heart failure. Not a good diet. Probably acidic.
Yeah.
If he would have gotten something else, you know, that would have did it too.
Right.
So there seems to be a lack of logic that's going on. There seems to be potentially some sort of monetarily influenced agenda. We're seeing that when one major company says that they are the kingpin for a cure and that you really can't go with anything else.
Yeah.
And this company has already had the largest lawsuit in U.S. history when it comes to fraudulent advertising and their medicines. You have to stop and think, are they really being as altruistic as they say they are?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I mean, it starts with that simple question, are they being altruistic? But there's ways of verifying the ethos of these companies.
Absolutely.
And ethos arguments, I don't necessarily think are super powerful most of the time because they wind up turning into like pseudo name calling types of situations. But when you're a company, like if you're a health company and you're telling people, well, I'm actually quite concerned for your health. Well, let me see your track record.
Yeah.
Yes. What's your track record?
Yeah. Have you really helped a lot of people?
Right.
If I find out that you've caused more suffering than you've helped, and then at the same time you've made a killing monetarily, to me that's a good ethos argument.
Yep. So
you find contracts. You find how they waive every part of liability from countries. And not only do they waive liabilities, they waive things like if there's a faulty shipment, not my problem. If it ends up not doing what it's supposed to do, not my problem. There's the difference between the advertised efficacy of something
Yeah.
and the side effects. You can say, well, I have immunities to the side effects portion of this.
Yeah.
But the strong liability clause, which is something that we have in U.S. government, states that your product still needs to do what you say it does. And when it's not even doing that, we're approaching the territory of possibly the biggest lawsuit we've ever had of all time. Like it could very well dwarf the $2.3 billion settlement.
Right.
Moreover, and a little, this is not public. Again, there's so many things, like Dolly said, that you will not even hear on the news. But currently, this is why America is a great country. And people don't realize we even have whistleblower laws. We have whistleblower laws. So if people that have worked on high positions in these companies come out, then we have to take their word seriously. In other words, it's not counted as libel. It's not counting as defamation. In other words, it stands in court.
Right.
And if they actually have substantial evidence to prove that there was malfeasance, then it's game over. So we're currently going through that as we speak.
And there have been a lot of instances of whistleblowing recently. I don't want to get into the specific names because of the nature of the stuff.
Yeah.
But when you have the head of one of these large institutions being confronted after some unfortunate information came out through emails, and she happens to, run away. She won't answer the questions, literally is running away into her house.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, obviously that says something that she wasn't honest, or for some reason is not willing to. What if she is honest? She's also not willing to stand up and correct the story.
Right.
How about you correct it but obviously we know what's going on there. And then on top of that, with these companies, if they were so clear that what they were doing is working, they would take liability. They would say, we're so certain that our product is safe and effective that if anything happens, we got you.
And list the ingredients. We want to know what's going in our body.
And that, that absolutely make that clear. Now that they do, apparently.
Okay.
I've seen some of them.
Okay.
But when you actually go into some of these emails that I'm referring to that got leaked accidentally, there's more to it. And then also, what about the people that literally cannot get it? What about the people who will have an allergic reaction? There's even an organization in Houston that barred me from working. And I'm doing them a service by not saying their name right now. But that'll come out. And they barred me from working because, I don't have it yet. And I said, well, hey, what about those people with, and they offer exemptions, by the way, too.
Yeah.
They just, for some reason, didn't want to give it to me. And I said, what about those people that have a religious exemption? Because that's not what I didn't apply for that. And they said, oh, we're not even taking that into account. I said, oh, so you're literally going against the United States Constitution right now.
Exactly. And the Nuremberg Code. And, what about, mandating this is just, everyone deserves medical freedom. We live in America. And all our frontline workers, our doctors, our nurses, our paramedics, firefighters, police officers who were there every day working. A lot of us during the lockdowns were home and worked from home. They couldn't. They had to go to work every day.
Yeah.
A lot of them got sick, got over it, got the immunity, went back to work. And now they're losing their jobs. They might not be able to put food on the table. And this is how we're rewarding them. And that should also make us think, why don't they want something like this? Because they've seen it with their eyes about the severe side effects, even deaths that are happening. So that should make us think, if the doctors and nurses don't want it, that should be a big red flag. And we need to do critical thinking. We need to do research. And, you know, if you ask the government, call them and ask them, will this prevent me from getting it? The answer is no. Will it prevent me from spreading it? The answer is no. Then I want to think to myself, why am I getting it? When I know my immune system is strong and I can get over it.
Right. It seems like we need to have a much more nuanced position on it. And you have, you know, take somebody, if you know this guy, Eric Weinstein, brother of Brett Weinstein, and Brett Weinstein as well, who runs the Dark Horse podcast with his wife Heather Hang. They talk about this stuff a lot, and these are some of the most high-level evolutionary biologists currently working today. And they're saying that, you know, there's so much information, and it is not a white and black dilemma. And there are many questions, and there's a lot of trust that has been lost, and it's totally feasible that trust has been lost in the large institutions. Eric Weinstein is like, I'm not anti-institution, but I'm anti the people that are currently in the institutions. And somebody like Anthony, he's got too much baggage with him right now. He's bringing along too much baggage, and we need somebody who's not a career scientist / politician that has been in numerous scandals, not at the helm right now. We need somebody who's, you know, potentially younger, potentially working on something very important. Somebody like Anthony, who's just been dragged through lies, has lied himself, takes credit for things he hasn't actually done. You have other people like Carrie Mullis, who is the inventor of the PCR test, who won the Nobel Prize for it in 1993.
That's right.
Talking about Anthony, and I'm not even saying his last name because I think it's just people, it's just a tough scenario we're in right now.
Yeah.
But Carrie Mullis is saying, why would you trust that guy?
Yeah.
He's one of the most lying. He shouldn't even be in science.
That's right.
Now, you know, that is just one person saying that about another person, but Carrie Mullis has a pretty darn good track record. So
Carrie Mullis is an example of a savant scientist. He was, you know,
who's honest about their own work.
Who's honest about their own work. There's a big difference between a career politician posing as a scientist and a scientist. If you want to talk about a scientist, that's an individual who loves the scientific method.
And let me interject real quick. As a career politician / scientist, Anthony Fauci, there goes, was the highest paid federal employee of 2021.
Yeah.
20.
Oh, he's a rock
His
star.
wife is one of the people from NID. You know?
You know, I'm actually not well versed on his wife, but
Yeah. So they're all is it the NIH or something like that?
She has a managerial position. She's involved in inspections for maybe NID. I think it's NID. Yes. Yes, that's
And
right.
Carrie Mullis that you guys are talking about, you know, he was saying that we can't even use the PCR test for accurate. We shouldn't be using it
we shouldn't be using it
to diagnose this current pathogen.
or to diagnose any sort of infection.
At this point, that was a contested point, but it's no longer contested. The CDC withdrew its PCR protocol, and they've made multiple public statements on their own government website. And I wanted to mention this, because there's two things that basically people use as their primary arguments for mandates.
Okay.
And their primary for mandates, and for the idea that, well, if you're just super healthy, it doesn't mean that you won't get it. For example, people will say, didn't you always have to get shots to go to school? And right? I mean, that's a big one. What they won't mention is, in those days before this insanity, if you wanted an exemption, nobody would ever turn it down.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
And through the HHS, exemptions for any sort of inoculation were easy to get. It was like this. There was a government paper that you would print out. You send it to the school. There were no questions. That environment is not the same as you don't get it, you have no job.
Right.
Right.
And I have to interject that this inoculation has killed more people than all the other inoculations combined.
Yes, and moreover, the 1973 pig flu program was halted after, I think, 4 dozen deaths, and they realized exactly what was going on, and they pulled it.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly.
And so now they're not pulling it. Why? I don't know. We need to ask these questions.
I mean, the amount of...
Go ahead, and then I'll say
the amount of myocarditis that we're having, it is very unusual. Myocarditis is not a common disorder. And right now, I forget the amount, but it's in the thousands. Young men getting myocarditis, pericarditis.
I believe Dr. Peter McCullough, in the study that he published the other week, said that when you control for the background rate of myocarditis, they're seeing it at a rate that's 19 times higher than usual, specifically in young males aged 12 to 24, 15 to 24, something like that. Basically young males. It's happening in like 88%. And even on the Joe Rogan Sanjay Gupta podcast, which I think was a pretty like paramount conversation when it comes to all this stuff. Yeah. Even Sanjay Gupta was aware of this and said, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I got to look into it. I got to look into it more. Obviously, he's an actor for CNN as well, so he can't just say whatever. Yeah. But I appreciate that Joe took him to the mountain. Yes. And said, we got to talk about some stuff because you guys are defaming me. You are making me look bad. They even took Joe's Instagram video when he got sick. After he recovered, he said, hey, I got it. This is how I cured myself. They took that video from Instagram. And I know this because I saw the video and then they also talk about it on the podcast. And they put a filter on that video on CNN to make him look a little more green and a little more gray. And I'm like, these people are freaking terrible. Yeah. And have some decency. Right. This isn't a game. We're actually all in this together. And I think, you know, we're probably coming up here on time, and feel free to say anything after this. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Right. And the majority of people, there's this really great image of like the elite playing this board game. They're playing like Monopoly. And then you realize that underneath the Monopoly board is being held up by all the citizens of the planet. And so if the citizens of the planet were just like, let's drop out the board.
No, let's literally stand up.
Yeah, let's stand up. Then they will not be able to have the board to play on. So it goes like that. And everything that we've said here today, especially for people who are listening, I want to do a disclaimer that this is an extremely nuanced view. We're not saying anything 100% one way or the other.
And disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. This is what I did for me and how I helped others. Right. But, you know, do your own research.
Do your own research. Do your own thing. When you actually begin to think critically about it, you put things together. You're like, well, okay, you need to look at some stuff. And, you know, don't be fooled by that. Yeah. But the main goal of all this is to really unite the people, not divide. They want to divide us every freaking day. Yes. That's why the only articles you see are divisive articles. That's why you have the directors at CNN being filmed saying, yeah, we're basically just doing this to get numbers and create and stir the pot. Yeah. It's like, well, wow.
Sounds like the most trusted news network is about to be a Houston ensemble. So we're coming for them. Yeah. And the time is up. I mean, the people instinctually know this. Yeah. There's a reason why their ratings last year or 2 years ago, before any of this even occurred, they were at an all-time low. It was so abysmal that the average YouTuber with 1 million, a little over subscribers, was getting many percentiles more views than a large network. And at that point, I think the little light bulb of anxiety and desperation went off in this power structure. And they thought, well, we got to go all in now because otherwise it's bankruptcy for us.
Yep.
And it will still be bankruptcy. Okay.
Bankruptcy of their bank account and their egos, which I think is the most important thing to them. So with that, Dolly, say whatever you'd like to say.
I've got to say that, I've been going to all the rallies here in Houston. And I really support not mandating this. We all need our medical freedom. We really need to stand up for the frontline people that helped us. My children and their great-grandchildren are going to say, what did you do in 2020 and 2021? Well, I can say, I stood up for this. I stood up for our freedom. Everyone deserves informed consent of what goes in their body. Everybody's bodies are different. Like you said, there could be allergies. Some people get myocarditis, blood clots, even death. So we're not saying you should or you shouldn't. We're just saying have a strong immune system, but it should be your choice. And no one should lose their job over mandates. That's just absolutely wrong. We're living in America, the home of the free and the land of the land of the brave, the home of the free. How's it go?
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Yeah.
We don't want it to turn into the land of the free, home of the slave.
Oh,
that's right.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was
so we just have to remember we need to really stand up at this time. I think it's a beautiful time to be living. It really is because
it's an intense time.
There's a great global awakening. And, I love to talk about Rosa Parks. She was on that bus that day and she simply said no. That's all it takes.
And
just
people lost their minds, didn't they?
And remember that she was considered, and that class of people were considered unclean.
Yeah. And she created a great change. And that's all we have to do is say no. I mean, just like these pilots did and made a huge difference. So everybody we all need to stand together. And, the government cannot mandate this on us. It's the person's choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we want to thank everybody for joining us today.
Namaste.
This was Dolly Vyas Ahuja, one of our great friends, amazing activist. We're so happy that she was here. Make sure to support her work. We'll put in some links regarding the documentary, what she's doing, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Make sure to support us. It'll only take you a second.
And Dolly's going to say one more thing. Yeah,
I wanted to say that, I'm an animal rights activist, and that's why I feel I have to stay healthy.
Right.
And that's why I choose not to take this, and I want to live because I have so much work to do for the animals. Yeah. So I have to remain, so healthy and my immune system to be strong so I can continue to fight for the animals.
We love it.
Thank you.
It's all love and peace. We'll see you guys soon.
Peace.